Hello, and thank you for stopping by the 741 channel. Today we're going to take another look at my old Dell Inspiron 1300 laptop with a Celeron M processor. A couple of weeks ago I installed Lubuntu Linux on this machine in an attempt to revive it and make it usable again. So a guy named Bart Anderson commented on my original video where I showed how I installed Lubuntu on here, and he left me a link that brings you to a forum post that describes exactly how to install the proper drivers for the Broadcom wireless cards that are in these laptops. Now I've already gone through and done that on this laptop, and I've verified that it works, and it works well. But let's go through the process again just so you guys can see how it's done. One thing I want to mention before we get started with this is that you'll need to connect your computer to a wired network connection, and that's necessary in order for the computer to be able to reach out to the servers and grab the appropriate software in order to get the wireless card working. The first thing that we're going to do is navigate to the link that Bart Anderson left me in the comments section of my original Lubuntu video. I'll leave that link in the description of this video so you don't have to search around and try and find it. Anyway, that link brings us to the askubuntu.com webpage, and in particular the questions section. Now, as you may be able to see here, there is a bunch of information in this thread that you can scroll down and read if you're so inclined. However, for the purposes of keeping this video at a manageable length, I'm going to scroll down to the pertinent section and start here where we have the number 1 and the title, Knowing What Broadcom Wireless Card You Have. So this is the first step. We have to determine which Broadcom wireless card we have, just like the title implies. And in order to do that, all we need to do is enter some simple commands in the terminal window and make a note of the information that it returns. So the first thing we're going to do is open up a terminal window, and we're going to do that by doing Control-Alt-T. So now that we have the terminal window up, I can issue the command lspci-nn-d14e4 : and then we'll hit enter. So you can see here that the command has returned 2 lines of information. The bit of information that we're concerned about is right here. This number that comes after the 14E4, we want to make note of this 4319. So now let's scroll down to the next step and see what we have to do next. Here you can see that there is an important note about this process, and basically what this says is that if you've already done this or attempted to do this, you're going to need to uninstall any of the drivers that you've already installed. And that's accomplished by issuing this command here in this gray bar. So in my case, if I want to reinstall everything, I will need to issue this command since I've already previously gone through and installed everything. Those of you who are paying attention will most likely notice that I've skipped ahead a few steps before actually removing the old package. But I am going to go ahead and do that now and get it out of the way. Alright, so as you can see, the command has finished, and that package should now be uninstalled, which also means that my wireless card is probably no longer working. So the next step in the process is step 2, prepping the system. And you can see here that there are 2 commands that will need to be run: the sudo apt update and sudo update Pci Ids. So I'm going to bring up the terminal window again, and I'm just going to issue those commands. And of course now I'm prompted for my password, so I'll enter that in. And as you can see, it'll run through and do a bunch of stuff here. We'll just kind of have to wait for that to finish. It should only take a minute or 2. As you can see here, the apt update command finished off and did what it was supposed to do. So now let's issue the update Pci Ids command. As you can see, that command completed successfully and ran a lot quicker than the first one. So now we're on to step 3, installing the package. Now the first thing that we're going to need to do before we issue any of these commands is we're going to need to come down to the Broadcom wireless table, and we're going to need to figure out which package we need to install. Now we're going to go back to the terminal window and find that number that we established in the beginning, which in our case is right here, and in particular we want the 4319 number. So we're going to make note of that and go back to this table, and we're going to search down and look for the 4319 in this second column after the colon. So you can see here I've got the 4319, and there's no revs of this. If your particular card shows up with one of these numbers and then a rev after it, you'll need to use that particular rev. But in our case, we don't have to worry about that. So now that we know which package we need to install, let's issue the install command from the command line. So it just so happens that mine is the same as the example here, so I can just copy and paste that so we don't have to retype it. Now that the command is complete, the only thing left to do is reboot the machine and then try and see if it works. Now that the computer has rebooted and is back in its normal state, we should be able to try and connect to the wireless card. The first thing that I'll do is disconnect the Ethernet wire so that disables the wired port and enables the Broadcom wireless card. So you can see here that it shows that I disconnected the Ethernet cable, and then down here in the lower right you can see the wireless card is now active and showing that I'm receiving a signal. So now all I should have to do is click on this and then click on the name of the network that I want to connect to, and of course it says I'm disconnected, and now it says connection is established. So everything should be working just fine. Now one thing to note is that I've previously set up the wireless network on this computer, so it remembered all of those settings and I didn't have to go through and enter any of that information again. If you're doing this for the first time, you'll have to set up your wireless network first before you can connect to it. You should be able to do that by clicking on the icon down here in the lower right and choosing Edit Connections. And then you'll have your Ethernet connection and your Wi-Fi connection, and then you should be able to just highlight the Wi-Fi connection and go to edit the selected connection. Once the dialog box comes up, you can enter the information that you would need to set up your Wi-Fi connection. I'm not going to go through all of that, but in my case I just enter an SSID, change the mode to client, and this stuff I'm going to leave blank or defaulted. Over under Wi-Fi security, I know I have this WPA and WPA2 personal as my protocol, and I enter in my password for my router, and then I should be all set. I don't have a proxy or any of these other things that I would need to change. And once I did that, I saved it, and that established the connection and made it work. So I'm going to test my connection and make sure that I'm actually getting to the internet by opening up a web browser and going to a web page such as YouTube. This is a little bit slow. The screen capture application that I've got running is kind of hogging some of the resources. Without that running, this works much faster, but you can kind of see that it's loading and actually connecting to the internet and an external source. So I think everything is working just fine. That's pretty much going to wrap up installing the Broadcom wireless network card drivers on this old Dell Inspiron 1300 laptop running Lubuntu. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to leave a comment or subscribe, feel free to do that as well. Thanks for watching.